Hey everybody, welcome to Do You Believe on Paranormal Zone TV. I want to thank you all so much for joining us tonight. I'm really excited about tonight's show. Oh, but first, for anybody who is new to the show, if you would please subscribe. Hold on for a second. If you would please subscribe to my channel, I'd really appreciate it. And please, if you like the show, please don't forget to give the show a like. I'd appreciate that as well. So everybody, tonight my guest is Harvey Althouse. Now, Harvey was on the show a couple of months ago. I was so excited to have him on. I've known Harvey for some time now, and he is a remote viewer, a psychic drawer, and tonight, while we're speaking, Harvey is drawing some impressions of this ghost story that I'm going to tell you about. It's on the Black Nun. So Harvey, show them you're starting to draw.
All right. Hi, everybody. Good evening. This is the start of the woman, the so-called mystery woman. I hope you can see that. That's the start of it right there. Got the head and shoulders in the process.
Got it.
So as we sat here and we discussed this particular story, I'm going to keep adding to it. I have already drawn the male.
Oh no! Don't show
character.
them yet. Yeah, we're not going to show them yet. We won't show them.
No.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I might as well start with the story. So this tonight, I have two little stories here, and the first one we're going to do is the Black Nun because Harvey is with us, and he's going to do his psychic drawings, and he's also going to give us his psychic impression of this story. And then the second one will be just a little trivia on history in Hollywood of the Nun, okay? And this is the new movie that's out, Conjuring 2. But anyway, so tonight, my story is on the Black Nun. All right, so here it goes. The Black Nun of Threadneedle Street. It's the old lady of Threadneedle Street is a common name given to the one of the world's most senior financial institutions in the entire world. It is, here it is, it's the Bank of England. Legend has it that the Bank of England is haunted by an apparition known as the Black Nun. And this is her here. The true identity of this nun is said to be Sara Whitehead. Now, this story is circulating on the web and on YouTube, and however, this is the only picture. There might be one other drawing like this, similar, but there's no other pictures of this Sara Whitehead. And I searched and searched and searched all over, trying to find images of her, trying to find more of a story. But it's the same story that's circulating. And that's why I asked Harvey Althouse to join us, because I want to know more, if he can pick up anything more on this story. All right, so let me continue. It is, and she had a brother, Paul Whitehead, who was a member of the esteemed Bank of England. In the early 1800s, Paul had a privileged inside job, the cashier's office, until October 30th, 1811. This was the day that Paul was charged with forgery. The following year, Whitehead was sent to trial at the Old Bailey, and a guilty verdict was returned. Paul Whitehead, at age 36, was sentenced to death by hanging. For the bank and its employees, this was a matter that had been resolved and almost forgotten. Staff seemed almost surprised to discover Whitehead's sister had turned up on their doorstep one day and asked to see her brother. Now here is Paul's information. He was there was 3 counts of forgery against him. This is also part of a from England, from the history of England. This is the transcript that was written up on Paul, And all underneath this transcript is all the questions and answers during his trial. And I don't know if they even called it a trial in those days. And then this is more proof that it is Paul Whitehead. He was born in 1775, which shows that he was 36 years old. All right, so let me continue with this. She had not seen her brother for some time and grew worried. Not wishing to hurt her feelings, one clerk at the bank told her that Paul was away on bank business. When she returned the following day and subsequent days, she was told precisely the same thing. Each time Sara Whitehead turned up at the bank, she was always dressed in the same style. Full mourning black dress with a matching full face veil. Her appearance as well as her verbal abuse made the staff and customers a little uneasy. Now this is typical mourning attire for the 1800s. So she probably was dressed similar to this. And here's another image. And here's another image. On that time she turned up and asked a member, and then one time she turned up and asked the member of the staff where her brother was. Well, out of annoyance and pity, he blurted out the truth to poor Sara. The shock on hearing that her beloved brother was a thief and was hung had a significant negative impact on the poor woman. Learning of his fate was bad enough, but being kept in the dark for a substantial amount of time just made a bad situation worse. Sara's grief took on a disturbing turn when once again she turned up at the bank. Hold on. She turned up at the bank in identical black dress attire and requested to see her brother. Something about her appearance seemed much more intense this time. Clearly she was in denial over what she had previously been told, while her more harsh persistence unnerved people even more before. She would yell at bank employees, insult the bank customers, and demanded money from the bank. Sara was convinced she was being kept from a huge fortune. Even from behind the veil, some believed that Sara Whitehead was going mad. In 1818, it is believed that the governor of the bank at the time made the decision to offer her a compromise, provided that she would not return to the bank for the rest of her life. Sara Whitehead would receive a stipend as a means of compensation from the death of her brother and whatever grief the inconvenience of not being informed. When the Bank of England discovered that Sara had passed... All right, guys, I don't know. I guess we're still up. Okay, we're still up. Oh, God, I don't know where I left off. I'm sorry. It crashed. I have no idea, but it crashed. Anyway, so let me... Hopefully I can edit this and put it together after we stream. But you guys can hear me now? Okay, great. All right, so I'll try and pick up where I left off. And in the meantime, Harvey is drawing. Let's see. Harvey's drawing. Keep going. Okay, great. All right. Oh my gosh. All right, here we go. Let me go back to this. All right. So, let's see. The last one was when the Bank of England discovered that Sara had passed. The bank generously offered to bury her remains in a plot behind the bank itself. And this is where they buried her, on the former site of St. Christopher le Stock, that dated back to 1282, and was demolished in 1781 when the bank was extended. The former graveyard became the gardens of the bank. Now she's not bound to the contract that she made in life with the bank. And Sara is free to roam inside the bank once again and within the grounds of the Bank of England. Okay, hold on. Okay. The bank employees began seeing dark shadows and an apparition dressed in black and a veil inside and outside of the building. And this is how she got her name, the Black Nun. Sara has been most seen often at night, wandering the streets around the bank and on Threadneedle Street, still looking for her beloved brother. People seeing her walk past are overcome with a feeling of intense grief and loneliness. It is her strange attire which first catches their eye. Sometimes she stops them, and with her eyes downcast, she asks politely, "Have you seen my brother?" So that's just the short story that we have, and that's the one that's circulating. And it just seems to be the same story over and over. So, Harvey.
Yes.
I got a hold of Harvey, and I do have, I have a drawing that, okay, so we have nothing. This is the only thing that could be used as Paul Whitehead, but it's just a picture of somebody supposedly forging records. Now, this is the image that Harvey sent to me. And Harvey, you want to explain this image?
Yeah, I sure would. Okay, so when Noreen called me and asked me to, if I wanted to do this, I call myself a paranormal, a remote viewer. A remote viewer, supposedly, I can see all different things and from many different times. So, and when I do readings for remote viewings, I get a lot of history, a lot of old history. So I was up for this challenge tonight. I really do thank you, Noreen, for having me on tonight. So anyways, and you have the picture up right now? Right?
I did. I put you up. Now I'll put the picture up.
Okay. So
ahead.
Anyways, the time period was between 1810 and 1814, at least in my mind. And what I tried to do is I tried to reflect an English person of that time period. And I even told Noreen I felt he was between 30 and 40 years of age. And I know he looks rather kind of older than that. But due to malnutrition, due to, there's a lot of rampant things happening to people back in those good old days. So, their health wasn't too robust. He's got a flattened nose, in my mind's eye. I felt like, as a younger person, he was, had been beaten around quite a bit, as a younger person. The hollowness of the eyes, the prominent cheekbones, actually kind of sunk in was due to malnourishment, not getting the correct vitamins, not getting, whatever. So I was really trying to depict a typical male, especially of a lower class. That was the thing in, merry old England, even to this day, they have a class system. You have the royals and then the aristocracy, and then you have the gentry, and then you have everybody else. And although he worked in the prestigious Bank of England, I feel that, he had lived a hard life previous. And just due to the fact that he was in poor health, so he looks a lot older. And one of the things as I was drawing, and when I was adding hair, you see the sideburns, and it was typical for the time period. Facial hair on the sides here, rarely would you see anybody with mustache. I'm not saying that they didn't have mustaches, but the preferred facial hair for that time period in England was, these extended sideburns. And you see he's wearing a high collar coat with the neckband. Was very time period, favorite at that time, because this is like the early turn of the 19th century. Kind of holding on to the look from the 1700s, the late 1700s, but trying to, even back in those days, England was trying to outdo France, but France had more innovations when it came to clothing and costumes. So anyways, I depicted this man between the ages of 30 and 40, probably looks more like maybe late 50s, here in this picture. I flattened his nose out because I think that he would have been, had a few scuffles back in his day. His eyes, kind of have that weird stare to him. To me, I felt like he had some kind of myopathy going on. He had some bad eyesight. This is why I drew him this way. Now, I had no references. As you heard Noreen, she said there was no, pictures other than what she showed you of somebody, being a cashier. But there was, it's like today where, when you take a picture of whoever you want to take, and the camera hadn't, even the daguerreotype camera hadn't been invented yet. That didn't come, pictures, the first actual pictures were taken in the early, it was 1830s, all close to 1840s in Paris, France, when the whole craze started, with capturing images on glass plates. So this is happening, almost a decade or two prior having pictures. Otherwise, they would have a render of themselves drawn, or painted, which I don't think he could afford. He was a bank teller, a cashier. All right? So, Noreen, do you want me to start telling how I feel he was involved in this?
Yes.
Okay, think about it, people. This is time period in England is between 1810 and 1814. The War of 1812 was in the works. The War of 1812 being the second time the British tried to reinvade America, going through, take the Mississippi route, heading south, trying to recapture some of the disputed lands, west that America hadn't expanded yet to. So there was a lot going on, and money, both England and France had been at war with each other for a couple of 100 years, by that time. And money, although they had it, it had more, it was, banknotes, and actual banknotes were one thing, but, in England, they were using coppers and pence and halfpennies and shillings, £1, notes, and up to anything. I think it was, I'm not sure because I'm not a monetary person, but I think anything over a £10 note would have to be approved through this cashier teller. You'd have to take it, to a cashier. It's almost like writing yourself a check, and that would have to get approved. So what I feel his motivation was, he wasn't making very much money. And I believe that his stature in life, his place, his station in life, I feel that he had several positions, working before he became this bank teller, cashier, whatever you want to call it, whatever he did actually. And I feel that if it was just him, happened to, on the amount of pay that he was getting, it probably would have been okay for just him, to possibly barely pay for a squalid living condition for him, like a room someplace, for him to live. But what I find odd is that this woman, shows up after he had been hung, claiming to be his sister. And nobody really knew about it, according to the story. So don't you think that Mr. Whitehead would have told people that he had a sister, previously, prior to this? Because in the court case, Noreen sent me, sent me the actual
Yeah.
record,
Right.
of what was said.
Yeah, I'll show it to them
There
again.
was several witnesses for the bank, but there wasn't any witnesses for this gentleman other than a character witness. But in the end, he didn't do him justice. So what I feel, and when I was getting impressions of, as I was drawing him, I feel he was a lonely man. I feel that he possibly grew up in an orphanage. I could be wrong, I don't know, but it's just a feeling that I have. I feel that he, grew up, an orphan child, growing up in orphanages and then on into workhouses, to find his course, being on the streets, a little bit, being a little tough, getting throttled every now and then, and that's why I felt he had a flattened nose. And then he gets this position, however he ended up getting it, with the bank as being, a cashier, and it sounded like he had worked there for 4 or 5 years without any issues whatsoever. So the court case against him was he had committed bank fraud, and what it involved was he was trying to, and it wasn't his position at work to do this. He was going behind the Bank of England, at least from what I was reading from the depositions from the eyewitnesses, that he was trying to discount these bills or these notes. I think what he was doing is that the person that ended up bringing the charges against him in the first place, I think what was happening is that he would go up to this person with this note and say, would you like to be the author and co-sign on this as a discount to you? Let's say it was worth £50, a £50 note. And I could sell it to you, and you could authorize it. That's what they call it, authorizing it, because this guy obviously had money, and they knew who he was at the bank. I'll sell you a £50 note for £10 less. Would you like to do this? Well, the guy, and he gave him a note, he says, well, he goes, funny, he was a proper English gentleman from the deposition was, he said, first I didn't know who he was, so I inquired about this Mr. Whitehead and found out that, he worked as cashier in the cashier department, and this is exactly, what he handles. But he thought it was odd that a cashier clerk, had a £50 note, or whatever the note value was at the time, had it on his possession, which it should have never left the bank. So he asked if he could keep it. Mr. Whitehead said no problem, because he wanted to check him out, because Mr. Whitehead gave him some character references to people at the bank. Well, according to the transcripts, is that yes, these people knew him, and one guy knew him pretty well, but he says in the deposition, he says at some point Mr. Whitehead wasn't acting like himself, and he seemed desperate most of the time. So my impression was that Mr. Whitehead didn't have a sister. I think he was a lonely man, and even back then, there were women in the night, through all history, which I feel that this, my impression, I can't prove it, but I feel that this woman was a woman of the night who he fell in love with or whatever, or wanted to be with her, but cost him money, and he could barely afford his own way of life, so he needed more money. So what better place and a position for him to defraud people? Now, what ended up getting him executed in the end was that he went to the wrong person. Well, come to find out, according to the deposition, that there were several people, who ended up, according to the witnesses, there was like 8 witnesses against, that witnessed against him. And he had no witness for himself except one person, for a character witness only. So he did this at least 8 times, And I feel what he was doing was he was discounting these bills, taking these bills, stealing them out of his till, fraudulently accounting for them, taking them off the premise of the bank, going to the customers that he knew and dealt with, because that's how the first guy, who actually got him into trouble, he knew him from the bank, and he knew Mr. Whitehead. Not well, but yes, he did do business with him occasionally, at the cashier's thing. So when it was found that these bills were legit, the gentleman, went ahead and he authorized it, and he bought, actually it was total of 87 pounds, and he bought it at a discount, minus 10 pounds and 50 pence or something like that. So what I think Mr. Whitehead was doing is he was, making a carrier's commission, was at 10 pounds, 50 pence. And back in those days, that was like $1,000 almost. I mean, I'm not for sure, but I know it was a lot of money, way more than he could afford. So with that kind of money, he lived a little bit more solvent for himself. But what I feel what happened is that when he, then he gets found out and he goes to trial. They didn't have time. They really didn't care if it was a lower class person. They had a public defender, but that's about all they had. They had no say. I did a little research, Noreen, earlier today.
Good.
The witness, they only got to speak when the magistrate wanted them to speak, and then he would give them instructions on how to answer.
Oh.
So it's not like he could sit there and speak his mind. Okay. Oh. So anyways, he gets caught. Character witness didn't help him. They hung him. He was, according to the deposition, according to, the rest of the file, the clerk's file, the clerk's notes of the trial, whatever you want to call it, the railroading of Robert Whitehead. He was 36 years of age. So when I found that out, I felt confident in my picture. I'm not saying that this is him, but I feel it was at least inaccurately, I said between 30 and 40, and he was hung, and he died when he's 36. Now this woman comes about, and according to the story, as Noreen read it, you guys remember, this woman started coming in, and almost every day wearing the same clothes, having weird behavior, yelling and screaming, "Where's her brother?" Making a real spectacle of herself. Now, I don't think he had a sister. I mean, I don't know. I can't prove any of this, but it's just a feeling I have. And this is a curse of being insensitive. Unless somebody can dig up the evidence, which, at least for my purposes, when people do historical research on properties that I help do remote viewing for, they find out that I'm 100% correct. But I don't think we have the availability, So anyway, so I feel what Mr. Whitehead was doing was he was trying to support a way of life that he could not support on his own. And it got out of control because he took on this woman of the night, trying to impress her, whatever it is, trying to keep her, put her in a better crib, whatever. And he got caught. And he paid the consequences, okay? So this woman comes in a little while later, almost on cue. If you ask me, I feel she had money, and then when the money ran out, I feel she already knew what happened to him. So she goes in, puts this ruse on of claiming to be his sister, which was shocking according to what Noreen read to the people in the bank. They didn't know he had a sister. She just claimed to be his sister. So, and every day he's wearing the same clothes, same morning clothes, same whatever, whatever it was she was wearing. And, finally, like you heard, one of the people at the bank took pity on her and just, or more or less said it, just to set it to, have her stop coming, was that he's dead. He frauded the bank and, he was condemned to death. you know. And then she puts on even a larger play, okay? Until the bank finally caved in and gave her a living stipend, you know, for not letting her know and causing her pain. And this is, you know, this is pre-Victorian England, you know, era. But the British are very proper, you know, and it was all about chivalry and knights, and for God's sake, they had a king, and, you know, it was all about chivalry. So they wanted this despondent woman, who, of course, they didn't know her from Eve, but just taking a word that she was Mr. Whitehead's sister, and paid for her till the day she died. And then along comes the story about the woman in black, you know, in this black veil, whatever, the mourning clothes, and, you know, being buried in the back of, you know, the church, Bank of England, you know, and then in the 1820s, when the England subway system started, or whatever that was, they dug right through it, you know, because there was a station stop right there at the Bank of England, and you know, who knows what happened to the bodies, but by her roaming around, you know, in dark mourning clothes, you know, they call her the Black Nun. Well, I can see that because she has a veil. So, but what I did, like I said, you know, you saw the guy that I drew. So, Noreen, are you ready for people to see the woman,
Yes.
the so-called Black Nun, without the veil?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I'm taking in accordance the costumes, you know, the what was worn during, you know, that time period, and what I picture her in when she wasn't in mourning clothes was just a time period simple dress. Okay. But I made it dark, and this is just an all pencil drawing, and it was really quick. So forgive me for any inconsistencies or unsymmetry stuff. But here she is. Hope you can see her.
Oh wow! Can you take a picture of that and send it to me on Facebook?
Yes, absolutely.
Really? So that's what you picked up as being Sara Whitehead?
Right. I feel she was a young woman, possibly in her late 20s, you know, and I feel she was somewhat slightly attractive, but, you know, for the purposes for what her business was, or what she was, you know, what she would do. And I mean, that's just my feeling. I can be totally wrong about it. This is what I say. You know, I don't know where this information comes from, but when I have these thoughts, sometimes it turns out to be what happened. And think about it. Back in those days, if you were a woman on her own and she's claiming not to have any other family to take care of, they would have taken care of her to where, you know, unless both mom and pop were both gone, there was no other family, then it would have been the male, you know, had the oldest male of the family to take care of, you know, the other family members to make sure that their well-being is fine. But like I said, I don't think he had a family, but I feel that he had this woman, and I feel that, you know, it cost him a pretty penny or farthing to, you know, to have her, and then when he dies, you know, the money, the gravy train, if you want to call it that, you know, stops, and by her leave, she goes in there wanting to know why she doesn't have money. I think she knew he was already dead, but I think that this is a ruse on her part, you know, to keep getting, and she was persistent, and she won. But that's just my thoughts.
So what impression are you getting as to why she kept haunting the bank?
Well, you know, to tell you the truth,
yeah,
I think she's looking for Robert. I really do, but not as a brother.
Oh, you mean Paul?
Yeah, Paul. I'm sorry.
Paul.
Yeah, Paul Whitehead. Yeah, not searching for him, but not as a brother. You know, and I feel what you know, when people had encountered it, because you know how legends go. You know, it's kind of like the old telephone game. it might start out, this is a true story of it, but then as, the years go by and people pass it on, it gets embellished. And, but there's several other, spirits also that could possibly be, mistaken for this Black Nun person, because, there's so much history just on the grounds of the Bank of England. I mean, it goes back thousands of years, that ground. So you have multi centuries of errant spirits.
Oh, yeah.
For God's sakes, they had a graveyard for over 300 years in the back of that bank. So it could literally be anybody.
Well, that church, that St. Christopher Lestock, that was from 1282.
Right. Then, so it's even more years.
Yeah.
So what I feel is it's your classic love story with a really bad ending on both parts.
Very interesting. I don't know how come this started circulating, and if you search, it's like basically the same. A lot of people call him Phil, and there is no record of a Phil Whitehead.
Right.
But there is Paul, and I found his record. But I could not find anything on Sara Whitehead, probably because that's not her name.
Yeah, that's probably what he,
Can you...
And the only thing, the only thing that I would add is this, and I don't know where this is coming from, but let's just say Paul knew at some point he was going to get caught. He probably told her, I can't keep doing this, I'm going to get caught. But if anything ever did happen to me, go to the bank and say that you're my sister.
Oh, interesting.
And just hang in there, and they'll take care of you. They'll compensate you. And she was persistent, and they did. They compensated her for the rest of her life. And then they, had her buried. So that was a win-win situation for her. So.
Wow. Can you come up with a first name at all? Can you pick up anything?
From her?
Yeah, of a first name. It would be easier than a last name, unless you can come up with a last name.
Yeah.
Were they? Do you get the impression that they were living together?
I think so. I think she was living with him in his whatever apartment, wherever it was that he was, able to afford at the time. And I just think that this was, like I said, if anything ever happens to me, because I got a feeling I'm going to get caught one day, and if I do, well, you know what the sentence is going to be. And he probably was doing it out of the kindness of his own heart, because I feel that he possibly loved her.
Well, according to the record, there was 4 records on him. Let's see. It's hard for me to see. Yeah, there were 4 records on him, but I think he only got charged for 3 counts of forgery. I may be wrong. Maybe there was 4.
Well, if that was on what you sent me,
yeah,
there was 5.
Okay.
There was a total of 8 people that accused him, and he got 5 convictions.
Okay, because here it says 4. Okay, well, I can't believe that he didn't think that he would get caught.
Well, love's blind, I think.
But in those days, forgery was they made it in that particular era. They made forgery a death penalty.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't take much to get a death penalty back in merry old England back in the time. It didn't take much at all. But yeah, I mean, because you went against the crown, and it was their currency, so you do that, and you're going against the crown. So, yeah, off with their heads, or in this case, hang him.
Well, I know.
You know.
Oh my! I think in that year, I read that there were 11 people that were hung for forgery.
Oh. It's surprising that that's all there was.
Yeah, it was 11
You know,
people.
it was England back in those days. It was pretty. If you were lower class, you know, below a gentry person, which would be considered middle class, but more upper middle class, yeah, you know, life expectancy back then. Well, let's put it this way: life expectancy for a male back at that time period hadn't changed much in probably about 500 years. So he was already pushing, you know, he died at 36.
Uh-huh.
You know, he was lucky he lived that long.
Yeah, that's old for that time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, how old was she? Or what are you picking up?
Well, I picked up, you know, like I said, I felt like she was between 27 and 30, you know, at the time, you know, before, you know, when she first showed up. You know, and even though I, you know, made her look as somewhat younger, but you got to remember, they used to wear a lot of heavy makeup, you know, back in those days, you know, which was the thing to do. Makeup was pretty cheap back in those days. Now there was some makeup that, you know, was high caliber stuff, but low class people, they would use, it was made with lead base.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
Right. And, you know, it covers, you know, it would cover blemishes and disfigurements and, you know, any nasty things that she might have had, you know, or even guys sometimes. But, you know, I just feel that he loved her and it was not his sister. And I feel that he told her, you know, because I felt he knew he was, you know, close to being caught, that if anything ever happened, you know, wait a little bit and go to the bank and say that, you know, I'm his long lost sister, or, you know, I'm his sister, I've been away, where's my brother? You know, and be persistent.
Aaron's saying, can we see the pictures? Aaron, we showed the pictures, honey.
Which ones?
I don't know. Aaron's saying, well, we'll show them again.
Well, here.
Okay.
Here's the one of the woman that I was drawing.
Okay, so that is what they're calling Sara. Actually, it's not Sara Whitehead, but that's the woman that Harvey is picking up as the woman in black.
Yeah, and this is without the veil on. I think this is what she, you know, something she would wear on a daily basis when she wasn't at the bank.
Okay, and this is the psychic drawing from Harvey of Paul Whitehead. Okay, I'm showing them Paul again.
Okay.
Very interesting. But why I wonder why there's nothing more. But I mean, like I said, I don't even know how this started, who started it. Now
right.
Okay, so Harvey.
Yeah.
Can you see my screen?
I see.
All right.
I see your blue screen with your.
Okay. Oh, not that one. It's my YouTube screen.
No, I don't see that.
Oh, okay. Well, the picture that's circulating of Sara Whitehead, I can't read the bottom of the picture. I don't know where this picture came from. And it must be connected to some story that's probably maybe in a book.
Oh.
But so I can't figure out when this story started circulating on the web, and now it's circulating on YouTube. But there's sometimes like one of the stories somebody had written that she was sharing a room with him and her friends didn't want her to find out about Paul, they called him Phil, being hung, her brother being hung. But if that was the case, Oh, see, that's another thing. There was some time in between the time he was probably put in jail, tried for the forgery, and then hung. The time lapse. If she was living with him, wouldn't she have gone down right away if he didn't show up?
Like I said, I think that he had left her with, a chunk of change, and probably, I'm just saying, gave her instructions, just my feelings, that, it's to wait. If anything ever happens to me, just wait, because people went missing all the time back in those days. I mean, they go missing all the time here, and we don't know what's going on. But, I just feel that, he knew his time was getting short, that one day he was going to get, caught, and he ended up fulfilling his own prophecy. And, back in those days, you didn't sit in jail very long. Maybe a week, 2 at the most. Because those jails were full of scallywags and scoundrels, and they were dealing with them as fast as they could. And I think, as far as why it's circulating, well, what I feel is people from all over the world, they just put stuff on the internet, just put files and files and files and files, and somebody stumbles across something with intrigue, and this has intrigue because of the mystery part of it. Who was this woman? Why is she still being seen, around that area? Like I said, I feel in this case, I'm not saying that there's no haunting associated with it because, it's England, but I feel the original story, the content of the original story, you're calling him Paul, they're calling him Phil. It's like that old kids game telephone. Here's the real, this is what's being told first. This is the truth.
Yeah.
By the time it gets down through the ages, all kinds of things have changed in it. The primary story basically is still intact.
Yes.
But then everybody heard something different over the years, and if it's Paul, somehow it's got a p sound, so fit, it's close. Phil, so there's a lot of different possibilities, of the context. But I feel that the original story is what, from the Old Bailey, from the old courthouse.
Yeah.
That's the truth.
Yeah.
Now, the woman, there's no record anywhere about a woman on that. The woman doesn't start till after he's hung.
No, and they didn't ask him anything. Court record is very short. It's very short. Yep. And I don't even know if they call it a court record because the way it was handled, it was just like, sit down and we're questioning you.
Well, I think what it was is because they had the witnesses there, and it does say magistrate. There is a reference, towards the end where it says magistrate. Then says whatever he says. So, like I said, they had so many cases, back in those days. I think they just dealt with them, as swiftly as possible. And, and because of his, now if he had been somebody of the gentry or higher, I think there would have been a much larger court hearing about it, and it would have been probably made the papers and.
Well, it did make the papers. Actually, I had a news clipping. It was in the newspaper, but it was a very small clipping.
Right. So, yes, it made the newspaper, but it obviously wasn't that much news.
Yeah, let me see if I can find it. I didn't put it in the... Let me see if I still have it. It was just a little clipping. I don't even remember if it had a... There was another document that he was mentioned in. Somebody else, it was a big document, and the majority of here it is. The majority of it was on a what was this guy's name? gosh, I can't read it. Oh, I can't read it. It's too small. I can't read it. Anyway, let me put in this this little clip that I found. Oh, I gotta find my program. Hold on. Let me find the program here. Let me see if I can get this in here. I wish you could see my channel.
Yeah.
All right. So, hold on. Okay. So this I found, and this was in a looks like it might have been in a newspaper, and it says the London jury before Mr. Baron Thompson, and then it just has this little blurb, you know, about Paul Whitefield indicted for forgery and counterfeiting.
Well, that's why when I mentioned that note earlier to see if it was authorized correctly.
Oh my God! And acceptance on a certain bill of exchange, and I don't know what 871 means, and 10s. Is that 10 shillings?
Yeah, it's 87 pounds, 10 shillings.
Ah, okay. Intention to defraud William Morland, and I'm thinking, and then there was a bunch of people mentioned. Then the second count for like offense with intention to defraud, and then a third one. Okay, so let me see. Maybe this is who. Oh, this is somebody else. This is another executed for forgery, a William Herberfield, and at the end of that document, it talks about Paul Whitehead.
They probably just used that gentleman as a precedent as far as how they went ahead and did Whitehead's trumped up trial. That they didn't even give him a chance to speak.
Let me see. Let me put this in. I mean, it was pretty fun to find these documents, you know. This one's a little harder to read. But it talks about this. He was executed for forgery, William Hyberfield. And this fella happened to have been in prison for 6 months. And then at the bottom, the prisoner was found guilty by given death. He suffered before Newgate on the 29th of January, 1812, with Paul Whitehead, a man of gentle appearance who was tried at the same sessions for forging the name of Thomas Gullen, an acceptor of a bill, 87 pounds, 10 shillings, and thereby defrauding Messrs. Robert, Curtis, and Company. They met their fate with decent fortitude, and when the fatal scaffold shook, they shook hands, after which they were launched into eternity. And they said the crowd was immense.
Wow.
Interesting, huh?
It's very interesting.
I know, I love this history.
So you said, just to back up a couple of sentences about Whitehead looking respectable. Is that what he said?
Yeah, respectable, and I guess he was hung at the same time with this other fella, and they shook hands before they were hung.
My picture looks pretty respectable.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. Pretty interesting.
Right.
I like it. Okay. Well, I want to thank you. So I'm just going to, my next story is just a little trivia on the
that's
nun.
Cool. That's cool.
So, Harvey, thank you so much.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. It always is.
Oh,
it's fun.
It was fun. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. And I hope you'll return on the show. We'll do something else like this.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much, Harvey.
Thanks for watching, and see you later.
Good night, Harvey. Thank you. Thanks. Whoops. Oh, Mamma Mia. Oh, wow. Did you like that, guys? I love that kind of stuff. Okay, you know what? I just have I wanted to do a little trivia on the nun. I mean, everybody's talking about the nun, and Here, and I was just going to do a little Hollywood trivia. Now, I happen to know the truth about The Conjuring, but I don't, So this is the nun. This is what she looks like. So, okay, all right, so let me talk about this. Okay, The Nun, of course, which is the latest Conjuring movie. And The Nun tells the story of a demonic presence that haunts a Romanian monastery dressed in the garb of a Catholic nun. The demon makes its first appearance in the film in The Conjuring 2, during which Lorraine Warren character is able to stop it wreaking havoc and banish it back to hell by using its name Valak. The real Valak is found in mythology is described as a boy with horns and wings who rides on the two-headed dragon. Now, was the nun inspired by a true story? No. One of the most notable mentions of Valak is in the mid-17th century in the Goetic Grimoire, the Lesser Key of Solomon, which draws on materials from a couple centuries prior. The book's name comes from the fact that the demons focused on are ones that, according to legend, were summoned by the biblical figure King Solomon. So, how much of the demon Valak is in the movie? How much of the demon Valak in the movie was inspired by Valak from mythology? Well, director James Wan explained that the nun character in the movie was actually inspired by a spectral entity. The demonologist Lorraine Warren claimed had haunted in her home. Lorraine described the entity as a swirling tornado vortex with its hooded figure that was in there. James Wan then decided to have the figure wear the costume as a nun to put it more directly in conflict with Warren's Catholic faith. And who portrayed the nun? The nun in the movie is played by a character actress by Bonnie Aarons. Is the Romanian monastery in the Nun movie based on a real monastery? Yes. The real-life Carta Monastery is a former Benedictine monastery founded in the 1200s in southern Transylvania in Romania. Oh, excuse me. Today, that monastery functions as a Lutheran evangelical church. The church building is the only part of the actual monastery that is still intact. The movie scenes were not shot there, but the film's depiction of the structure is an interesting link to the region's past. So I just wanted to do a little trivia. Now, excuse me, I don't know why I'm coughing. Another thing is, the real Conjuring is not the true story of the Perron family. And they call this a Warren, Ed and Lorraine Warren case, and it is not. Ed and Lorraine Warren were only involved with the original Conjuring, the Perron family haunting, for only less than a year. It was less than a year. Now, I have a video clip if you want it. I'll show it to you. I interviewed Keith Johnson. I've interviewed Keith Johnson several times. And then on this one show that I had, he was talking about demonic possessions. And we got to talking about Ed and Lorraine Warren and how Keith was the first one involved with the Conjuring, with the Perron family haunting. So I'm going to play you that little clip, okay? I find it interesting. Hope you will too. All right, hold on.
We were brought in first, and of course, we, as I explained, we were good friends with the Warrens. My parents were good friends with them as well. We talked it over among ourselves, and we thought, maybe we should ask some advice from our good friends Ed and Lorraine. They dealt with with spirit cases like this. They've been all over the world. We should at least ask for their advice, tell them what we're going through, and ask for their guidance. So we called them, and they were very, very receptive. They said, well, we'll do more than advise you. We'll come down there and we'll actually participate in this case because it sounds like a very serious situation. We'll participate in this case with you. And that is, in the true story, that's how Ed and Lorraine Warren did become involved.
So there you go. So Keith was the first one to be introduced to that that case. Now, if you don't know who Keith Johnson is, Keith and his brother, they were both involved in this case, and they were the demonologists on the Ghost Hunters. Now, also, come on, I did a show. I've done 8 shows with Andrea, and in one of the, actually there were several shows that we talked about the Warrens, and I've done 8 shows with her, and I was only able to get out one clip from the one of the shows I aired with her, where she talked a little bit about the Warrens, because I think this particular show was the real story of the Conjuring, the real story of the Perron haunting. And Ed and Lorraine Warren were only involved for less than a year with the Perron haunting. And what happened was, when they had come to the house on one of their visits, it probably was their last visit, Ed and Lorraine Warren conducted a seance with Roger and Carolyn Perron. And something went wrong during that seance. And Carolyn almost died that night. She was attacked and she almost died that night. And Andrea said that her father got so angry. He was furious. And he yelled and screamed at Ed and Lorraine Warren and told them to get the hell out of their house and never come back. So I don't know why they call this a Warren case. Maybe because they were on it for less than a year. But this was one of the interviews. I've interviewed Andrea way back in 2010 or 2011. That's how long I've known Andrea. But this was a couple of years ago, and I'll just play you this clip where she talks about. This is a minute long if you want to watch it or listen to it. This is where she talks about Ed and Lorraine Warren. How much of The Conjuring tells your story?
It tells the story in very broad strokes. There's no way that they could have conceivably squashed 10 years of events into a 2-hour film. Not to mention the fact that Ed and Lorraine Warren's investigation of our farm occurred between 1973, October of 73, and July or August of 74. So a very short period of time, considering we lived there for 10 years. There were many, many incidents that the Warrens didn't know about that happened after they were completely out of the picture. So they worked with limited information in terms of what Mrs. Warren could provide. I gave them information. Of course, Volume 1 of the trilogy was already in the public domain. They had access to that. I gave them a 3-page handwritten timeline of major manifestations. For all intents and purposes, they used none of it.
But Ed and Lorraine Warren, Andrea said that Ed and Lorraine Warren did, they did present what evidence that they had to James Wan, the director, and Andrea had presented a slew of information to James Wan, and she said it was really good stuff, and they never used it in the movie. But Andrea is in the talks with Hollywood to get her real story on screen. And I want to tell you, the real story of that Perron Hauntings is scarier and much more interesting than the movie The Conjuring itself. So that's just a little bit of trivia. I just thought I'd share that with you. So anyway, everybody, I want to wish you all a Merry Christmas and thank you so much for joining me tonight. I hadn't planned on doing this show, but I thought, oh, you know, I'll just do a little short show just before the holidays. I wish you a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, however you celebrate your holidays. I hope they're happy and enjoyable. And thank you so much for being here tonight. I will do a shout out. Let me go to my Facebook page. I think Roy sent me a couple of messages. All right, hold on. Let me go to my Facebook page. Facebook. Come on. Hold on, guys. I'm just going to my Facebook page. Oh, Aaron Brody. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for the super chat money. I think Mama Joe. I haven't seen you, honey, in a long time. I believe Mama Joe Buffalo also contributed some money. Thank you very much. Let's do some shout outs. I think I didn't see Annie tonight. But I know Royce is here. Royce Hinman, my mod. Everybody, don't forget to send your prayers and positive energy to Royce to stay healthy. We need to get him better. Actually, Ed and Lorraine Moore, they do have in their little museum an Annabelle doll, and I forgot how they acquired that. Okay, let's do some shout outs. Royce, do you have some names for me, or I'll just read it off of here? Okay, let me read this off of here. Mama Joe Buffalo, that's right. Oh, here we go. Also, Graham Crosby and Carl White, Aaron Brody, Beat 3 Airspace, Cassandra 50, Kathy Salento, Chippa Ek, Fairy Queen, Mama Joe Buffalo, Woman, Nancy, Ray McCoy, Royce Hinman, Skatchashan Gurung, the Cheetah Twitchy Witchy. And I know Mike Ricksecker, Haunted Roads Media, was in earlier as well. Did I miss anybody? Let me go back. Did I miss anyone? Yeah, I did shout outs. Anybody else? Prophecy, Nancy, Chippa Terry. Anybody else want to shout out? I don't know. Did you guys enjoy the show? You know, I'm really not. You know, if I did a pre-record, I could do a lot better. But this is on the, you know, fast end, and I just decided to do one. And I'm not really good at reading stories, but if I recorded it, it wouldn't have been like I had read a story. But oh well. I just hope you enjoyed it. That's all. It's just something to bring to you guys. Anybody else want to shout out? Tammy Heitzman. Yes, hi Tammy. Aaron Brody. Hi. Yeah. Okay, guys. Well, okay, listen, I already got the 3 shows lined up for January. I'm gonna Barry Strom is coming back. We're gonna do a conspiracy show. He wrote a book. Thank you, Kathy Salento. He wrote a book on conspiracies, and all these books were written from the spirits that gave him the information. It's very interesting how he writes these books, but I love Barry Strom. So he's talked about who really killed, JFK, who killed, what's her name? Natalie Wood. Who else? Who was the guy that was in charge of the Union? I forget his name. Hi Maria H. The guy that was in charge of the union, what happened to him? I mean, he's got a whole bunch, and he asked me today, he said, well, who do you want to talk about, Noreen? So I'll come up with some conspiracy stories. If you want to send me some, send them to me at paranormal zone TV@gmail.com, and send me who you want to. Jimmy Hoffa, that's it. What he says about Jimmy Hoffa. Anyway, this book is filled with conspiracies, and I love those kind of shows. But this, like again, is coming from Barry, who gets these spirits that give him this information. Then I have, oh my gosh. Oh, who do I have? I have, oh God, what's his name? I just had him on not too long ago. God, I wish I had my calendar. Oh, darn it. Who did I can't remember. It's right at the tip of my tongue. He does, he's a warrior that does cleansings and, oh God, what's that guy's name? He does cleansings and, he's been haunted. He's been on the Hauntings for a long time. Oh, come on, guys. What is his name? You guys like him. He wrote another book, Stranger Than Fiction. He's got all kinds of stuff in that. And there's a couple of topics like the Mothman, Bigfoot, UFOs. He's really into UFOs. Oh, God, the Supernatural Warrior. He does cleansings, exorcisms. Come on, guys, what's his name? Anyway, he's coming on the show, and I forget. And Dave Spinks is coming on the 31st, the last Thursday of the month. He's coming on. He's Bill Bean. That's it. Yeah, Bill Bean wanted to come back, but I've got to fill my shows with the people that have requested to come on the show. I think through April or May. So anyway, yeah, I got some good shows. Yeah, Dave, oh my God, he wrote another book. I can't remember what we're going to talk about on the 31st. It may be Mothman. You know, he did a fantastic, complete, thorough investigation and a DVD on Mothman. So I'm not sure if that's what he's going to talk about. All right, guys, I'm going to go. And thank you so much. I love you guys. Happy holidays and my blessings to you all. Royce, thank you so much for modding tonight. You're always here. He always helps me. And I saw that you wanted Royce to come on the show. Yeah, Royce, come on the show with me. Let's do something. And also in January, it's on a Sunday, I'm doing a show with this fella from the UK who does, he was involved with Keith Linder, the Hauntings in Washington, the Demon of Washington, the Keith Linder story. He did a DVD on that story, and he's now done one on the Brookdale Lodge. I don't know if you guys remember the Brookdale Lodge, but it's a fabulous, awesome, historic location, although it was never declared historic, in by Folsom, California, in Brookdale. And so he's going to come on the show, and he's going to talk about, he did a fabulous investigation. I haven't seen it, and I want to buy his DVD because I want to see it. He put together a DVD and a fabulous investigation, and things that we never knew. I mean, the mob was involved in it. It had underground tunnels. It's quite a haunting story. So that's on a Sunday. So I'll have 4 shows in January. So anyway, guys, I will see you in January, okay? January 3rd, I think, is the first show of January. So I love you guys, and thank you so much for always joining me. It's a pleasure. If you want... thank you. If you want a show reminder, I sent them out, but if you want a show reminder, sign up through my website at paranormalzone.tv, and click on show reminders, and you'll be in the database for show reminders. But you can also set a show reminder on the front page. It says set reminder. When I have a chance, I will I'll set up all the events for January, okay? So everybody, I'm gonna go. I love you guys, and I will see you. Oh gosh, I screwed up here. Hold on. I gotta find my hold on, guys. I gotta find my live stream so I can shut it down. Hold on. Come on. Oh, this is gonna be great. All right, guys, I'm gonna go. I love you guys. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. Have a great, safe holiday, and I'll see you. January 3rd. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so, and please don't forget to give the show a like. Love you guys. Good night. Love you.